Hi, Tracy here with BibleJournalingMinistries.com, and in this video I'm going to share with you how you can make your FaithDex card holders for just around $1. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is just put something down on my work surface so it doesn't get so messy with all the sprays and things like that. Let's talk about our supplies that we're going to need. We're going to need a box I got this from the Dollar Tree. You can pick them up at many different craft stores, but it was just $1 at the Dollar Tree, so I couldn't pass it up. And you're going to need a couple dowels. Now, these dowels I picked up from the Dollar Tree as well. They came in there was a pack of quite a few of them in there, and they're the 12-inch dowels. You can't use the 6-inch dowels because they're too small, so you have to use the bigger dowels. So you just need a box, you need your 2 dowels, and you need some spray or paint or stain or whatever you have around your house. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy anything, but I'm going to use some of my favorite distress spray stains since I haven't used them in a while. I have broken china, picked raspberry, and squeezed lemonade. You're also going to need some glue. Wood glue works just fine. I'm going to be using E6000. I want a glue that's a little bit giving. I don't want to use a hot glue gun because if my measurements are off or if I need to move the dowel a little bit, it's going to allow me to move it a little bit before it totally sets. And then you're going to need a couple Q-tips or something to raise the dowels off of the platform, and that I just used a couple Q-tips whenever I'm doing that. So I don't do a lot of prep work first. I just kind of take the little sticker off the bottom of it, and you don't even have to do that part because really the main thing that you want to be stained is the sides and then the inside. So but I still take the sticker off because why not? I also don't do any sanding. You're welcome to do sanding if you like to. I don't, because I don't do things that I don't really need to do. So I just don't do that. Let me give you some measurements so that you know what box I'm using and what the size of my dowels are. So the size of the box that I purchased from the Dollar Tree is approximately, let's see, maybe I'll do it in inches. It's a little under 5 inches. So let's see, a little under 5 inches. So if we're going to be specific, that's 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 sixteenths. So 4 and 14/16 of an inch in terms of the width, and in terms of the length, it's 6 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 12/16 inches. So it's 6 and 12/16 inches is the size box that I'm using. In terms of the depth of the box itself, we're looking at 1 and, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 and 12/16 inches for the box that I actually purchased. What's important is the inside of the box because that's where we have to decide where we're going to place the dowels. So the box itself on the inside, and I have measurements here, but on the inside of the box, the width of this box is 4 and about 4.5 inches is what you have on the inside of this box, and that's what's important. In order to place the dowels, what you want to do when you place your dowels, you want to go from the center of your box and go about 1/2 inch to the right and 1/2 inch to the left to place your dowels. So in this situation, your dowels are going to be placed at 1 3/4 inches and then at 2 3/4 inches. That's where your dowels are going to be placed. I have a little guide here that helps me know where to place my dowels so that I can sit here and place it down in the box, and then I know I can put a little line and I know where that dowel needs to sit. So I can actually do that in a few spots, and that will help me line my dowel up pretty accurately where I want to place it. So I just do it in a few spots so I know where that dowel needs to be placed. Exactly. Okay? In terms of your dowel length, now your dowel length needs to fit exactly in the box. Now I've made my dowels pretty tight. You can see they are, I mean, if you just stick them in there, they're not going to move. So mine are pretty tight. The dowels that I'm using in the inside of my box, let me tell you what they measure at. The inside of my box measures at, since I'm doing inches, I'll stay with inches here. 6 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 and 7 sixteenths. 6 and 7 sixteenths. So just make sure, I know these boxes aren't made exactly exactly perfectly each time. Just make sure that you're measuring yours. And again, in mine is 6 inches and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually real closer to actually 7 sixteenths. So 6 and 7 sixteenths is probably the right measurements. So 6 and 7 sixteenths inches for the length of your dowel. So you can see that you can't use the 6 inch dowels. They're just going to be too short. And I would rather cut my dowels to size than have a short dowel. Of course, I'm sure you could figure it out if you wanted to use shorter dowels. If that's all you had, and you had like a shorter dowel, you know, that just kind of sits in there, I suppose you could glue it down. But if you glue it down, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time with your MemoryDex cards or your FaithDex cards. They're not going to go underneath the dowel, which is what is needed. You need that extra space below to get that MemoryDex card to sit correctly. I'm using the term MemoryDex and FaithDex cards interchangeably. They're basically the same card, except for our FaithDex cards we use for scripture, for memory verses, for prayers, and things like that. Where your MemoryDex card is really used for photos and life moments. So, and you can use FaithDex, you can interchange them. I have pictures here, you can see my FaithDex cards here, where I have pictures of people, and then I've been praying for them, all different kinds of things. So you're not limited. So if I use the term MemoryDex cards versus FaithDex cards, they're interchangeable terms. So the next thing I do is I place my Q-tips down, and what those do is they allow me to make sure that my dowel is raised off of the platform. Okay, I don't want my dowel sitting right on the bottom of this platform, because if it's sitting on the bottom of the platform, again, I can't get that card to sit in there correctly. So I use a Q-tip just to kind of make sure I have a place, and also it allows me to pull it out later pretty easily. And then the next thing I do is I take my dowel and I just place some of this E6000 glue on the end of that dowel, and then I place it in where I want it, and I line it up with those marks that I made. So you can see, and I actually have to wipe a little bit of this glue away because it's right on the edge there. So if you need to wipe off some extra glue, feel free. If I had another Q-tip, I'd use the Q-tip to wipe it down, but I don't have it, okay? But you can see I have a little bit of glue seepage on the end here, but I'm not too worried about that. And it looks like I have it pretty well lined up, so I'm gonna leave it like that to let it dry. And then I'm gonna take my next dowel, and I'm gonna glob some of this E6000 on it. You don't need a lot of the glue, but it tends to come out of the bottle pretty quickly sometimes. So let me just wipe off the excess. I'll just have a little bit of that glue on the end. I guess I better put the lid on this thing. It's going to town. A little bit of this E6000 goes a long way, but you can use wood glue too. That works fine. I wouldn't like go out to the store to buy E6000 if I didn't already have it in my house. Okay, so now I have that set pretty good, and it is on my Q-tip, so it's spaced really good in terms of it being off of the bottom of that little platform here. So now if I just put my sample card in there, I can now adjust if I need to adjust at all. So it looks like it might be a little bit tight. Let me try to move it just a little bit over. And that's why it's important for me to use the E6000 or a wet glue. There we go, that's much better. Because if you're using a wet glue, you're going to be able to move your dowel. If you use something like a hot glue gun, you don't have as much time to move the dowels back and forth. So I just spot check each of these, and it looks like that's gonna lay pretty good, so I'm fine for that right now. The next thing you wanna do is you wanna let this dry. I'm not gonna let it dry because I'm on video and I don't wanna waste your time waiting for this to dry. So I'm gonna move my Q-tips out of the way as best I can without moving my dowel. And I'll come and just do a spot check in here in just a minute. But if I do move my dowel, I have to remember to put it right back. And I'll do my spot checks in just a minute. It's a lot better if you wait for it to dry before you move your Q-tips. Otherwise, you might accidentally move the dowel. Oops, I broke that Q-tip. I'm trying to move the Q-tip without moving the dowel. And let's see, it looks like I moved it a little bit, so let me double check my spacing. So that looks good. That looks good. It's a little tight over here at the end. Okay. Yeah, now it's good. So I just have a little practice card that allows me to place my FaithDex card wherever I want to put it. Okay, so now comes the fun part. After your dowels are dry, now you can come in with your spray stains and have some fun. I always like to start with my spray stains, the light colors first. So I'm going to come in here, and you don't have to shake it actually. If you're using Distress, you don't have to shake it. But I'll come in and I'll just spray a little bit of that yellow. And then I'll come in with a little bit of the pink. I should be wearing gloves because this can get a little messy sometimes. But I find like the Distress spray stain really just soaks right into that box. And it's just really a nice, pretty color. Look how pretty that is. Okay, I just love how the wood just kind of soaks it in there. And it's such a pretty rainbow effect. Okay, and I'm going to do that on this side. I'm going to just let it kind of drip here on my paper towel as it starts to drip down. But isn't that gorgeous? Oh, that's so pretty. So I'm going to come in here and do this side next. I always start with my yellow first, and then I come in with my other colors later. Whatever. And one more time on this side here. Actually, two more times on the side. You can do the bottom if you want to. It's just not an area that I focus on. gosh, isn't that pretty? Got a little bit of that blue running down, so let me help it out with that yellow a little bit. If there are any places that you're not like entirely thrilled about, you can just come in with your paper towel and just dab it off a little bit. Just kind of lighten it up a little bit. You say I don't like that darkness there. Maybe I don't like that there. So I just kind of wipe that up a little bit before it soaks into the wood too much. And I can come in with a little more of that pink, maybe a little more of that yellow to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, pretty, right? Look how nice that stain just kind of soaks right into that wood. Okay, I'm going to come in here and do a little yellow here. Maybe I'll do the blue this time closer to the bottom, and then maybe the pink closer to the top. Maybe a little more yellow there. Okay, and now I have all sides done. You can see how this gets quite messy, which is why you need to have something protecting your work surface. But again, you don't have to do the bottom. If you want to do the bottom, feel free to, but that's not my focus. I always focus on the sides first, and then I come in, undo the top. Okay, because the sides are the things that you're going to see most whenever you see your FaithDex holder, because your side, you'll have a lot of FaithDex cards in here, but you won't see those, and certainly you hardly ever will turn it on the bottom. But if you want to, you can. I might do that in a bit, but let me have some more fun with this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to try to spray the sides a little bit more. And yellow is one of my favorite colors. As you can tell, I'm almost out of it. But I also have this distress stain, the squeezed lemon distress stain, so I can always come in and use that as well. All right, so now that I have that yellow done, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that pink. Start to do the sides of this box a little bit more. A little bit of the pink. I'm going to come in with a little bit of the blue and just finish it off. But I do think it creates a very beautiful colored box. And again, that wood grain just kind of soaks it right up. I'm lightening up that blue with a little bit of that yellow, giving it a little bit of a green tinge to it. And as that wood grain starts to soak in your colors, you can come back later and add more if you want to. Okay, I'm just going to let it sit there for a little bit and soak into that wood grain. We can see, we can even move it a little bit if you want to get some of that ink down into the crevices. You can do that as well. And just move it around, and just as it starts to soak in. And let me just kind of let some of that go. But that's really pretty. Let it dry before you decide if you're done with it or if you want to add more to it. So I'm going to sit here and kind of look at this box. It looks like a really interesting spray painted box. So if I want to do the bottom, which, you know, again, you don't have to do the bottom. No one's going to see the bottom but you. But you can come in, I'll maybe come in with a little pink, just to kind of give it a finished look. If I were selling these, then I would definitely do the bottoms, just because I think it creates a nice finish to it. And I'm just going to let it soak into the wood for just a minute and let it dry. Again, if you can come in and you can take some of it, remove some of it if you want to, if you're impatient. But that's a really pretty color. So you don't have to use yellow if you don't want to. You can use just two colors that you like. But I do love yellow, so yellow does hold a place in my heart. All right, let me see if there's any other things I want to do here with this inside. Add a little more yellow to it over here. I'm almost out of this yellow, so it is having a hard time spraying. And a little more of the pink. Okay, I like that a little better. So I usually just play around with it until I get something that I'm satisfied with. A little bit of the blue over there in the corner. The thing about the blue is sometimes it just brings off a little bit too much darkness in there, but that's fine as well. So let's let this soak in for a little bit before we finalize our box here. I love how I started off with yellow on the sides and now it's really soaked in. I'm starting to see some of that pink come in. So I can come in with my little distress dauber here. And if I want to just bring out any more of the yellow, I can just kind of dab it in there. So if you don't have any of the sprays, but you have the daubers, feel free to use those. You can get pretty good accuracy with the daubers. And you might actually save yourself some ink. But you know, there's nothing like spraying. I love spraying, so yeah. So let's let this dry for just a little bit. Oh, isn't that pretty? But you can see just how fun, like look how pretty this rainbow box is. I just love it. It's so pretty. I'm just getting some of that extra ink that comes out of the edge. But isn't that pretty? So let's let this dry for a little bit. We'll do it one more time. Let's put that aside. And since I'm running low on yellow, maybe I'll just do pink and blue for the next one. So one more time. You can see my hands getting all colors, all the colors. Set this aside. Okay, I have another box here because I couldn't just take one. I had to have more than, and I already cut my dowels to size, you can see. So, oh, this one has quite a few cracks on the bottom of it. It'll still hold up, but you might want to be careful whenever you're picking yours out to make sure there aren't any dents or things that make it kind of not as stable as you'd like it to be. All right, so again, these dowels are 16 and 7/16. I'm going to take my guide that I have. I'm going to mark where I want to put my dowels at 1 3/4 and 2 3/4. And it makes it really easy when you mark where you want to put your dowels. Okay. You can see that this will go pretty fast. Maybe I'll just do one Q-tip this time. But you can see if you're making these a lot, I mean, maybe you're making them for gifts or something. They're quite easy and very quick to make. So here's that one. And then here's this one. And whoops, I lost a little bit of the glue there. Come back. Oh, this dowel actually is not a good dowel to use. Look at that. It's got a bit of a roughness to it. Now I can just turn it upside down and use it. So make sure whatever dowel that you're using, that it has a good side to it, you know, a nice round side to it. So now I'm going to move my Q-tip out of the way because I have it where I want it. Again, you might want to let yours dry before you move your Q-tip, otherwise you're going to be fussing with the whole thing again. All right, let's see, how are we setting in there? Okay, this is a little bit off, and I can see where it's a little off because I can see my lines. So I'm going to move my dowel just a little bit over this way and see how that goes. So moving this one over just a little bit. Pretty good. And just a little bit over this way. I think we have it pretty close. This one is a little bit too far over. So you can see why it's important to have a glue that allows you to move things around before it sets. Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm a little tight here. I'm fine over here, but over here is a little tight. So I'm gonna move this out a little bit. And there we go. Now it's perfect. Yay, perfection. Even though we're usually, you know, we're not worried about perfection, but it's nice to have it right. Oh, that looks good. Okay, so now we can do the fun part, which is the spray part that I love. And I'm gonna go with the pink and the blue. So I'm gonna come in with the pink. So you can see I'm gonna go a little bit faster. Oh, there's something on here. Let me take that off. Okay. I'm gonna come in with the blue in just a minute. Cool. And what's great about using the pink and the blue is it starts to make purple when they blend together. So you really do get multicolors. Okay. That looks pretty good. I'm going to start here across the top. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to come in with my dark. Now you can use spray paints. You can use anything that you have at your house. You don't have to use the stains that I have. I just haven't used my stains in a while, and I thought it would be fun to do for this project. Okay. And now let's do the bottom. It looks like it soaked up a lot that was on my mat, but I'll just come in with a little bit of pink and let that soak and let it dry, and then we'll be right back for a final look-see at our FaithDex boxes. All right, our FaithDex holders are pretty much dry. This one has a nice varnish on it. I just added some gloss varnish on it. I really like the shininess to it, but you don't have to. You can keep yours matte like this one is. And I'll show you how I do the varnish in just a moment. But you have your choice. You can either use it with the varnish or not. It's totally up to you. Another thing you might want to do as you are making your FaithDex holders is you might decide to, especially if you're making them for purchase. So if you're making them for gifts or for purchase it, you know, you're going to give them to somebody. What you might decide to do is maybe you spray the inside of the box first, and then you spray your dowels, and then you add your dowels in afterwards, so you don't get any, maybe you see here where I have a little bit of the wood grains showing through there where the ink didn't just quite go through. So that might be something that will affect your box if you decide that you want to sell these, or from a user standpoint, having a little bit of wood showing there doesn't matter, because you're going to have your FaithDex cards holding there, and they're going to fill up this whole tray. But if you are selling them or giving them away, that might be something that you want to consider, going ahead and doing the spray, then adding your dowels in later. To do the varnish, I just use a gloss varnish by the Master's Touchline in Hobby Lobby. You can get this for oftentimes half off, so about $4.50 for a bottle like this. You can use a spray varnish or a spray clear coat. All of that will work. I'm just going to show you how I use this varnish, since I have it right in front of me. And sometimes I don't want to get up and go get a spray varnish. So spray varnish is easy. You just spray it, let it dry, turn it over, spray it, let it dry. Super easy. If you are going to use a gloss varnish like this, I would recommend that when you place it in your box, that you go with the wood grain. So if your wood grain is going like this, up and down like this, then go ahead and follow the wood grain. And you just need one thin coat of the varnish. Again, this is an optional step, so if you don't have varnish, you don't like varnish, you don't have to use varnish. So I'm just going to come in here and just add a thin coat of varnish. You do not need a lot of varnish. You just need a nice thin coat. And I do like the gloss. I think it does kind of create a nice little shininess to it. And I usually just add a little bit as I go. I don't, tend to put a lot of varnish on there and then end up wasting it. I just like to use exactly what I need. And again, you're going to go along the grain of the wood. And then I do the insides next. So I'll put a little bit of the varnish down, and I'll come along and do the insides. And after I'm done with the insides, so again, I'm going just with the grain, I'll do the tops after I'm done. So I'm going to speed this up. So I'm just going to come in here, add more of this gloss varnish, do the sides, and then I'm going to come across and do the top. I'll do the sides and lastly the bottom, and then we will be all done with our FaithDex card holder. Just one thin coat is all you need. If you want to add a second one, feel free, but go ahead and just varnish your boxes if you want to. It's totally optional. You do not have to do it, but I think it creates a nice finished look to it. If you have any extra varnish that has like slipped on the edge, like maybe over here, just come around and then just take that and go with the grain of that particular piece as well. So that's how you apply your varnish, and when you're done with your varnish, you'll have a nice shinier FaithDex blocks for about, what, under $1.50? Who can beat it? I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. Please give it a thumbs up. If you have questions, put them in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.